Fantasy Boardroom. As always, I am your host, Tycoon, and finally, for this season, we do have our very first guest.
What's up?
Welcome, sir. So, who we have with us tonight is the one, the only, Kev Mahserejian, the Roto Surgeon. He is from Fox Sports. He is the reason that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman left the company. You can thank him for that. He is the host of the Operating Room podcast. Fantastic show. He's actually put together a pretty impressive little guest lineup himself over there. Recently had on, for my money, one of the brightest minds in the game, JJ Zachariason, talking about breakouts. That's a hell of an episode. Make sure you go check that one out. And he is the greatest Twitter detective there is. Welcome, Kev. Glad to have you here, sir.
Tycoon, thank you for having me. It's a hell of an intro right there, and proud to be the first guest of the season. Or is this the first episode ever? I don't know.
It's first season. We debuted last year with kind of training wheels last year, but you are the first one this year. Kind of rode solo, going through some just basic positional breakdown. Still early off season, but now we're really ready to get meat and potatoes, and need smart people with me to do that.
Yeah, hopefully you get some smart people on after me, and then you could get it all rolling.
It'll be great. See, that's why you're still at the beginning of August. See, you catch on.
Clearly. I'm the preseason fantasy guest. When you get to the in-season and the playoff guys, then it's the real meat and potatoes,
I can't even get proper guests in season, man. All the good people are hard at that point.
Yeah, it's okay. You'll figure it out.
But no, really, though, stoked to have you. Do have a lot of respect for you as a fantasy mind. No, seriously. So I'm really pumped to have you here. Do this. So tonight we're going to start our divisional previews. We're going to start with the AFC and NFC East. We only really have about a month to get through them, so we're going to do both conferences when we do these divisional previews. So, and rather than doing the team by team thing, rather going to break it down positionally. I think that's a little more fun. Everybody goes team by team. You can find team by team anywhere. So let's break down positions by division, and we will start early. And we'll start with the AFC East. We will start with quarterbacks, and we'll training wheels for this episode. A simple rank them. And just to keep the training wheels going, I'm just going to jump in really fast because mine's really fast there, Kev. And I'm going to say Allen, Tua, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones as my order of the four in the AFC East. I do not have Wilson last. Some people will be surprised by that. Not everybody, but many. And I don't think the true breakout is this year. I think it's next year, but I do think it starts now, especially with the addition of Wilson and, second year Elijah Moore. I'm very excited for what Wilson has in store. So how about you? How do you have these guys?
I have it Allen, obviously one. That's like undisputed number one quarterback. And then Tua, as you said, number two. But I have Mac Jones like right behind him, and then Zach Wilson fourth. So I don't think a breakout's coming. I don't think he's good. So that's kind of my, I think he could be a fine quarterback in the sense that, that's his upside, a fine, Baker Mayfield, he reached fine at times, but he was mostly bad. I think that's Zach Wilson in a different sense because he could run a little more. So at least he has some fantasy viability. But when it comes down to it, Mac Jones, not that he has the weapons that, that Zach Wilson has. He's just a better, he was a better passer of the quarterback. He showed it last year. Is arguably the best of the rookies, and probably would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year if Jamar Chase didn't go absolutely bonkers. Jones is going to throw more. They're going to throw, I believe, 100 more times than the Jets. They're going to run a faster paced offense than the Jets because they just can't do that with Zach Wilson at the helm. Zach Wilson's going to take more sacks. He's going to throw more picks. He's going to fumble the ball more. He's a volatile quarterback. And Jones, just in and of himself, is going to throw more touchdowns, even with the lesser weapons at hand. And, he ran a little bit last year, and he has some sneaky wheels. So maybe he rushes one or two in. Maybe he gets those Brady sneaks. So there are a lot of ways for Mac Jones to be viable. And I have him right below Tua, even though Tua has arguably the best weapons, and if not the AFC East, the league. So I think Mac Jones, he's proven himself as a competent quarterback who could be really good. Tua, I have him above just solely because of the weapons. So, you got to give him a boost for that.
Yeah, I think most who have Tua ranked, in that range are basing it basically, off the weapons, 100%. Now, wow, you are harsh on Wilson. Don't think he's even good. I mean, he's the Baker Mayfield comparison's where I got drawn the line. Baker Mayfield does not have an arm. Zach Wilson has a cannon. Zach Wilson has a hell of an arm.
Baker has a strong arm. I'm not going to say he's weird. He has an inaccurate arm. He's not as good as throwing on the run. But when he sets himself, he does have a strong arm, Baker. Like, I think it's pretty, he's been tracked as, like, having a strong arm. He's just very erratic. That's the problem with Baker.
And that still remains to be seen with Wilson. Obviously, not a good rookie year, but
no,
most rookie years aren't. So I'm not going to hold that too harshly against him. All right. Now, you kind of already broke in. Honestly, you already broke down the second point here I was going to make about kind of where you're at on these general quarterbacks. I would say I think you're right mostly there. As far as Mac Jones goes, I don't even think he was arguably the best rookie quarterback this year. I think he was clear cut, no doubt, the best rookie quarterback this year. I don't think it was particularly close. But I still do have concerns about the overall offensive philosophy at times and his weapons. I mean, the reliability and consistency of Hunter Henry, of Devontae Parker, of Kendrick Bourne. All right, I like Jacoby Myers, actually. I like Jacoby Myers a lot, just as a player. But we know Bill likes to run the ball. Now, maybe he was trying to protect Jones a bit last year, going a little more run-heavy than he would. And what's this season going to look like without McDaniels at the helm? So I guess there's still a bit to be seen, but I don't really expect them to be any sort of high-volume pass offense, whereas when it comes to Wilson, they're still not going to be a good team, so they're still going to be a lot more passing opportunities for him in my mind because they're going to be playing catch-up frequently.
But they do have Breece Hall, and they're going to rely on him as the safety valve, essentially. If not more, Wilson, Davis, all of good receiving options. Obviously, Moore's very close to a wide receiver 1 right now. It's just that they're going to realize that they're going to win games, or they have a better chance of winning games through their run game with an improved offensive line, relatively improved, and spacing on their offense thanks to their weapons, than just relying on Wilson. Even if they're down in games, they're going to play through the ground or play through their running backs and try to navigate it without relying too much on the second-year quarterback who is, in my opinion, very just not good.
I think they're going to try. I don't think they're going to find success and have to try to rely on the quarterback, whether or not he's good. They're not going to have a choice. I mean, when you're going to be down 14 plus points in many games, I mean, you can only rely on trying to ride Breece so much. It's my thought. And obviously, Allen's our QB1. We already went over that as well. Yeah. So quarterbacks, simple. Something a little more fun though, running backs and ambiguous backfields. We're facing a little bit of. I mean, obviously, outside of Breece Hall with the Jets. Do you feel that there are any running backs on their respective teams that are the clear-cut, no doubt, running back ones for their team? Harris, Edmonds, Singletary.
Chase Edmonds, by all means, is the RB1 in the sense of touch share. He's going to have the largest amount of touches relative to Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin. If he makes the team, we don't know, but Edmonds is going to be on the field the most. He's going to touch the ball the most because he's going to use as a rusher and a receiver. He'll be like a pseudo receiver out of the backfield. And I think Edmonds, and then Harris Ramondre is where it gets interesting because Harris is a better rusher, but Ramondre is a better receiver, and I think he's close enough as a rusher that he can overtake Harris eventually. So that's someone I have interest in, but he's not going to lead the team in touches by all means. I think the holdover is potential James White, his availability, because if he's available, that takes him off the field. Right. There's a lot of question marks there, but Chase Edmonds is the next guy after Breece I'd expect to lead his team in touches.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Harris, I also have slight durability concerns about, and Singletary, while I do think he'll also be the leading back for his team, we'll get to James Cook here in a minute. Bill's running back is still just not a position I want to invest in, period. So that's where I'm at. So very much agreement there. Unlike Wilson. Nice. Now, to the rookie backs. You already mentioned you expect the Jets to ride Breece Hall, so just how high are you on Breece Hall overall?
I'm very high in the sense that he's a great third-round pick. If you late third-round pick, I wouldn't take him over the early wide receivers going in that range. I'm thinking right now, who are some of the guys like an A.J. Brown, a Tyreek Hill, some Debo falls to that range. I'd probably take those high-end wide receivers over Breece Hall, but when you're getting to the back end of the third round, you're looking for upside as well. Like, you're always looking for upside, but those premium players start to dwindle down. And I see Breece Hall. I see a running back who has, again, a quarterback they might not trust, an offense that has weapons to open up the field, and plenty of talent as a rusher and receiver. Michael Carter is in the way. Michael Carter probably has durability issues given his size. He had it last year. He missed a few games. They drafted him in the second round, so clearly they value him, and they might just have him overtake Carter if he's performing better than Carter. He's a better rusher than Carter by all means. He might be a better receiver than Carter. Carter's a good receiving back, but if Hall is at the same level or even a little lower, they're going to have Hall in the field as much as they can because he's arguably going to be the best back in pass pro given his size, given just the guy you want out there at 5'11", 220. He's going to be the guy later in the season, I believe. I think start of the season it'll be more Carter. He has the incumbent value, but as the season wears down, as the Jets realize, okay, we can't rely on Wilson as much, can't rely on the pass game as much, it's going to be like a Hall show. So he could be like a second half stud, and that playoff weeks are when in the second half. So I want a guy like Breece Hall on my team who could be averaging more than I have him averaging more in my projections, more than Cam Akers. I have him averaging just about as much as Aaron Jones. This is in PPR as well, more than ETN, more than a lot of those mid-range. What's up?
I said spicy.
I mean, he's
Jones
a good player. He's a good player, and he's going to be the goal line back. He's going to be the bell cow by the end of the season, I believe. And, again, you might have to ride some maybe 10 to 12 touch weeks early on, but he'll get there eventually. So I'm very high on Breece Hall this year.
I don't even think it'll take all that long. I do think you're right. I mean, the incumbent value for Carter will be there, and he'll maybe the first 4-6 weeks, but that's honestly all I think it's going to take for Breece to really take over. I don't think it'll take much longer. I think the hell of a player. He's going to catch on quick. Early reports from camp on Breece are good. I mean, camp reports take them for what they are, but still. If it confirms my existing opinion, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I'll take confirmation bias all day, every day.
Hell yeah. All right. Now, James Cook. What about him? Is he going to be relevant in any sense?
Not a fan. Not a fan. It is very hard to see James Cook find a way onto the field consistently. He will be the receiving back. He will probably lead the backfield in touches, but by how much, I don't know. My guess is Zach Moss is the third down back on the team because he is, that's a role he plays very well in. And the third down backs, while, we laugh at them, guys like Brandon Bolden last year saw 40 targets as the third down back because he could block well. He's a good enough receiver. Samaje Perine, full-time third down back. I wouldn't guess that Samaje Perine is a good player, but he's a good third down back. Which, that sounds weird to say, but he's not someone I want on the field on all times, but I want him protecting my quarterback, and he can catch those dump-offs and do a little bit something with it. That's about Zach Moss. I think that takes away from James Cook's value. While James Cook will be on the field as the RB in obvious passing situations, when it comes down to those third downs, when it comes down to protecting from blitzes, it's going to be Moss because Cook's like 6 foot or 5'11", 190 or something.
Yeah, he's tiny.
And he didn't have to pass protect in college much. He was hardly on the field much, and he didn't even break out until his senior year because he just wasn't that good. He's a capable back. He's a good gadget. He's good on end arounds, on jet sweeps, on screens.
Sure.
He's useful. But he's not a guy you're going to see on the field too much. He's going to see about 50 to 60 targets on the season, but he's not going to rush the ball enough because he's not good between the tackles, and that's where Singletary comes in. Singletary's going to be the goal line back along with Josh Allen, so I'm out on James Cook.
I don't even have anything to add to that either. I'm in complete agreement on James Cook. Cook. And you brought up the most important point I wanted to drive home myself is that Moss is likely to remain the third down back, and that would be where Cook's primary value would come from. So without that opportunity being available to him in all likelihood, I excuse me, have a hard time saying, I was going to see the field regularly. But now we're going to move to wide receivers. We're going to stick with the Bills, and I have to ask you about the Gabriel Davis experience. Yeah. Are you in or out on Gabe?
I think he catches
at
a
his
lot
current
of flack.
cost.
I mean, that's the only way to talk about him. He's a top 50 pick in drafts. He's a top 24
Yeah.
wide receiver. Look, I get the argument for Gabe Davis where he didn't play the amount of snaps, yet he put up the production. And if you prorate that production to the snaps, oh yeah, sure, he looks like a great wide receiver, but you can't. It's not 1-to-1 that easy. You can get to a certain range, and my guess is he's like Ayuk this year, or Ayuk from last year, where yes, he sees more usage, but like the efficiency might go down, the touchdown rate goes down, and you're just left with a good player who's not returning high-end value. So you're taking him top 24, you're taking him around DK Metcalf, you're taking him around guys like, I'm not a Deontay Johnson fan, but I'd take Deontay Johnson over a Gabe Davis, given that I know how much usage Deontay Johnson's going to get. You're taking him over a Rashad Bateman even, possibly, or that's someone I believe is going to be a breakout. Marquise Brown's dropping to that range sometimes. So you're taking guys who could be a wide receiver one in general, when I don't see that with Davis. They're the wide receiver one on their team. He still has Diggs. My strategy right now is target Diggs, fade Davis, because Diggs is likely to suck up that extra target share percentage or whatever that's left over from Sanders and Beasley being gone, than Davis just seeing his natural progression from the increase in his snap share. So do I think Gabe Davis is going to be better than last year? Absolutely. Do I think he could be fantasy relevant? Absolutely. It's not saying much when it comes down to what the price you're paying. So I'm very much so out. If you were going around the range of like a Brandon Ayuk, around like a Hunter Renfrow, in that Alan Lazard, Robert Woods, if he's going in that range, oh yeah, I'm targeting him all day. That's where I'd love to get him, because he could definitely have a step forward. You're paying for a breakout that's not coming. I think you're getting like 900 yards, 9 touchdowns with 60 receptions or so, which, good player, not worth that ADP.
No, I mean, I have him as wide receiver 36 myself, although granted, the difference between really any wide receiver three, anywhere from 25 to 36, is not a huge gap as it is. But point being, I think there are just others, that have a clearer path to higher upside that go in that same range. I mean, even Allen Robinson, I would 100%. Rather have Allen Robinson, easy.
Yeah.
And we're not going over the North today, but just know I share every ounce of Bateman love that you have as well.
Good.
We've got him very, very high. And yeah, I mean,
he's getting sniped from me in a lot of recent drafts, and that's been disappointing me.
He's absolutely been rising. It's painful, and I don't do enough early drafts. I'm not a big best ball guy, so I haven't been taking advantage of that. But hopefully, at least in the leagues that I'll be in, some people have missed the boat. That's my hope.
It's unfortunate. I have him in
about. They're not listening to me, though.
Yeah, in my underdog leagues, I'm looking right now. I think I have him in like 50% of my drafts.
Good man.
Yeah, I have him in 50%, but that's underdog. In NFC, NFFC, where point per reception, he'd be more valuable. I'm not landing him because he's just going so high. He's going nearly in the 40s. I'm looking in the 50s, and that's that's a little margin. That's not saying much, but if I have, like I said, a Hollywood Brown followed me, I'm going to take a Hollywood Brown who's a little more proven, and I'd say a better offense, a higher pass volume offense, despite the the arrest today for the criminal,
he'll be
the
fine.
Felony driving. I think he'll be okay too. But
Arizona's strict on speeding. I mean,
it's weird. I did not know that.
It's wild. Yeah, you get arrested over 100, I believe.
I've gone over 100, and but like I didn't know the rules in Arizona, but I live in California, luckily. So,
yes.
Aside from that, I'm very grateful that I don't live in Arizona. I've been to Arizona, fine place, not somewhere I'd live. But yeah, back to Bateman. Or were we even talking about Bateman? I think we were on
Davis. No,
okay, Davis.
I would think we kind of wrapped him up. Like, neither of us is in at cost.
No.
Maybe take a shot. Yeah, once you kind of get towards the end of that wide receiver 3 range, I mean, I'm much more comfortable with him in an 8th or 9th round pick, as opposed to a 6th round pick or earlier.
Just not it. Not it. I'd take him over Drake London. I'd take him over those rookie wide receivers going later, but not those high end wide receivers going around him. The running backs, maybe. I'd take him over like Cam Akers, but I hate Cam Akers this year. So it's just like I can pick and choose, but overall, I'd still, if you're saying where should he be going, I'd say probably in like the 70s, maybe even 80s.
Yeah. That'd be about the range I'd say too. Probably more like the 80s. All right. So we'll move on down the division. down to Miami, Yakville, USA, as it should be this year. Hill or Waddle? Who you got between the two? What's your preference?
I mean, if I can't, 1-to-1, give me Tyreek Hill. Give me the multiple-time All-Pro. If you're giving me ADP 1 round apart, I'm taking Waddle because my guess is they are closer than people realize when it comes down to fantasy. Tyreek Hill is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL when it comes down to value. What he adds to what he adds to a field, the way he stretches it, the way he just creates yak, the way he does everything. Tyreek Hill might be the most valuable wide receiver. He might not be the best. Let's say Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. They're the best quote unquote wide receivers when it comes to playing the position, running routes. But when it comes down to adding value on the field from the wide receiver position, it's Tyreek Hill. And I think that benefits Jalen Waddle a lot as the second option, given that Waddle is now 2 years removed from that fractured leg, I believe, that he suffered at Alabama. He was explosive last year, but he didn't look as explosive as he did in the past. Maybe that's just the transition from college to the NFL. But my guess is, again, now 2 years removed, fully healthy, full offseason, good to go. He's going to look like the wide receiver they drafted him top 10 for a reason, and they might get a different look at him. And I think it's closer, him and Hill, than meets the eye. So my projections have them decently far apart. They're like almost 2 points apart. But when it comes down to it, I think it could end up a lot closer if Waddle hits his high-end outcome, which very possible with an accurate quarterback like Tua and Tyreek Hill on the opposite side of the field.
That's fair. I mean, I still, even at cost, think I lean Hill simply. I'm an upside chaser, and while I don't expect it, I don't think he quite has wide receiver 1 overall upside on this team, but I do think he still could be top 5, and he's going well outside that at this point. Again, I'm not 100% sure if I expect it, but if a man can do it, it's him, and I'm always going to chase that.
Yeah.
And you think they're both top 15?
No.
You have Waddle up there? No?
I have Hill top 15, and I have Waddle top 22.
Okay.
Top 20-ish. Waddle, Deontay. I'd take Waddle over Deontay Johnson. I'd take Waddle. I think I'd take him over him, and DJ Moore is where it gets interesting because DJ Moore is the clear-cut one, but the Miami offense is going to be a lot better. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'd take Waddle over Keenan Allen. How about that?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just looking at guys in their range right now, but definitely over Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I think Waddle. Where do I have Waddle? 17, so just outside the top 15. I'm pretty high on him as well. Now, to some less desirable situations here. Patriot whack a receiver, as far as now there's already a lot of ambiguity from week to week in the Patriot receiving offense. Now with the addition of Devontae Parker, I feel like that only is said ambiguity. So is there any Patriot receiver that you want?
Oh, I mean, I want both Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is going after pick 120 in drafts. And even if, let's say, he has a 22% target share, which is very fair, it's something he's commanded in the past, he's due for some efficiency regression, given that, he had a rookie quarterback last year. He had Tom Brady before, so that transition is a little rough. And he had Cam Newton, I believe, in 2020, so he was still pretty efficient with Cam.
Positive touchdown regression too?
There's no such thing with Jacoby Myers. He doesn't get targeted enough in the red zone. I think he could have a career high, but that's five. That's 5 touchdowns. So, and I think I'm projecting 4. So that's double.
That's still generous, yeah. And those were his first 2 touchdowns.
He has everything you need out of a good PPR receiver. He has a 67% career catch rate, which catch rate isn't really sticky year to year, but that's that's about his career rate. And he's gonna have a lot of receptions. He's gonna have a lot of targets. He's going very cheap, and that he's not going anywhere. He's still the lead slot receiver for that team. I think if he sees, let's say, a 10 to 15 more targets than last season, I only have him at 10 more. I have him scoring the same as Monroe St. Brown, going 60 picks before. I have him scoring similarly to a lot of those wide receiver 2s, more than Hunter Renfrow. I have him scoring, I'm scoring more than Tyler Lockett, who's going 30 picks before. So Jacoby Myers in PPR is a stud. in like a half PPR league, maybe less so because he doesn't get those touchdowns.
Right.
Those points per reception aren't as valuable, but his yardage should go up, and I expect a very, not surprising, but a very high value year out of Jacoby Myers. And then Devontae Parker, red zone target, might steal some from Hunter Henry, who was like the lead red zone target last year. But I mean, this is maybe the best quarterback of his career, arguably, you could say.
Yeah,
Tannehill,
I think you could say
Fitzpatrick,
that.
Tua, bad Tua. I think we get a good Tua this year. The Patriots are very good at reviving careers. And he's had he put up a 72 1209 season just like 3 years ago. He's only 29. I'm sorry, he'll be 29 this season. So I don't see why Devontae Parker can't have a very good year, and he's going after pick 150. So the kind of guy in a best ball, he could give you some spike weeks with those touchdowns. Maybe he's the lead target on a week where Jacoby Myers isn't playing or isn't very involved. Yeah, I'm into Devontae Parker.
I think he might be the first. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not a popular sentiment, obviously, given this ADP. I mean, that kind of tells you where the general crowd is at. Consensus is always wrong, though. I am largely with you on Myers. Huge Myers guy. He's been a tremendous flex and fill-in play for me in several dynasty leagues the last couple of seasons, full PPR leagues, anyways. So yeah, in full PPR, honestly, I think he's dynamite and an incredible value, going 11th round or later. So definitely got to target. I'm not nearly as optimistic on Parker. I mean, although you do make a good point, this will be the best quarterback he's played with, and I don't know if I've cut him enough slack in his career for what he's had to play with. So maybe I've been a little harsh, but he has struggled with consistency, with health. I mean, the 1209 season was awesome. I was also a beneficiary of that. And maybe I'm still bitter that I couldn't unload him while he was hot, really. Nobody bought at the time. So
yeah,
I got stuck with him. Now, to the receivers catching passes from your least favorite quarterback. Do you have any interest in either of those guys?
I mean, my least favorite quarterback right now would be Deshaun Watson, but when it comes down to like the guy I believe in least to take a step up, it's probably Zach Wilson. I do like Elijah Moore. I think he's worth his ADP in like best balls because I mean a little after ADP because he's going around the late 60s. I'd prefer him in the late 70s, early 80s. Talking about eras here, obviously, but yeah, he's talented. He's going to have his spike weeks. He's going to see those weeks with 10 plus targets. But again, I don't expect too many pass heavy weeks out of the Jets, even though their defense isn't that good. And, again, Zach Wilson, he's one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the league. Those targets he can have targets, but they have to be on target. We're dealing with just a great wide receiver with a bad quarterback. And, not to say I'm worried about Garrett Wilson, not to say I'm worried about Corey Davis, but those are two good targets. They're going to command their shares. Their tight ends, they added Conklin and Uzoma, who I don't expect much from. So at least those you could put to the side. But when it comes down to the wide receivers, it's hard to see Moore take on a massive share that would mirror last season. But I think 22 to 25% of a target share should be enough to get him to like wide receiver 3 scoring with wide receiver 1 spike weeks in best ball. I would not touch him week to week because the Jets passing offense is going to be far too volatile for my tastes.
That's fair. It will be very volatile. So he probably is a better best ball target. I'm with you as well as having him in the wide receiver 3 range. I've got him as my wide receiver 28 this upcoming season.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm far more optimistic on Wilson than you are. See, I actually do project a young player to grow a little bit. I mean, you talk about him like he's Drew Lock. It makes me so sad.
That was my comp coming out. So.
Oof.
Yeah, he's not good. But hey, maybe he could be fantasy good, which Blake Bortles has been fantasy good. So there's your optimism. I mean, Elijah Moore, again, I have him at a 23% target share with scoring 12.6 points per game, which isn't great. But again, that's as good as players in his range. So he's worth taking. And there's upside for more because he showed us last year. There's more for more. How about that?
More for
Potential
more.
for more.
I like more. Yeah. And like you, not overly worried about Wilson or Davis, but Wilson is a stud I'm very high on him just for his career, not necessarily this year. And Corey Davis is a just a professional wide receiver. I don't know.
Yeah.
The guy
A good professional wide receiver.
Yes.
Like last year, he was commanding a massive target share and performing really well. He just got hurt after 6 or 7 games. He played 2 later, and he was kind of in and out. Corey Davis is good. He was effective and efficient last year. He just got hurt again.
He had a lot of chemistry with Wilson too in preseason and camp last year, and when he was.
He's the only big body they have really on the outside, so he's gonna have to be on the field. If there's an odd man out in like 12 personnel with like those 2 tight end sets, or if they bring a fullback on or whatever, it's gonna be Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson is, raw. He's young. He's like 22 or something, and he has some flaws by all means. He's not perfect yet. I think he is the 3rd in the target totem pole for the wide receivers, and I'm just not interested in him at ADP because rookie wide receiver for the Jets, who is still he has some things to work on. So give me Moore, give me Davis at ADP. I'm not interested in Wilson.
I agree. All right. Now maybe the least interesting position in fantasy here, and particularly in this division. Do any tight ends in this division matter? Maybe Gesicki, but really, how do you feel about the names at this position here in the AFC East? Gesicki, Knox, Hunter Henry.
I like Henry. Because he's good. He's been a good tight end throughout his career. He's very cheap. I love cheap tight ends. He's like going pick 140. Last year, I think he averaged like 10 points per game, which not much, but that's what I expect from like Knox and like Dalton Schultz and all these guys. I'd have Gesicki lower because the biggest concern with him in the Mike McDaniel scheme is blocking. He's blocking. He's not running routes. If he's not running routes, he's not catching passives. And he's a deep threat. He's not a yak guy. He's not there to play the George Kittle role. I don't know if they have a tight end. Maybe Hunter Long. That's your sleeper tight end if there's any. Maybe Jonnu Smith bounces back if you want another late round pick, but that's like you're playing in the deepest of drafts, and this is like a week 3 pickup. You're like, oh, maybe he wasn't as bad as last year. Jonnu Smith, actually, just to go on him for a second, he was extremely efficient in yards per route run. He just didn't run a lot of routes last year, which I didn't realize. He was just blocking a shit ton. So the Patriots really, I don't know what they were doing with him and Henry, because Henry's very good and he's going to play, and I'm going to draft Henry, and I am drafting him. But Jonnu, I feel like he still could be good because he was like a big-time target for everyone last year and busted massively.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize he wasn't running that many routes. That's very interesting if he was impressive in terms of points per route run. Huh.
Yeah. It caught me by surprise because I was like, he was playing. He was on the field. He just wasn't running.
Yeah, I know he was on the field. I watched a lot of these games. I mean, granted, I would lean more behind Henry then. I mean, I've been a Henry stan since San Diego. And yes, San Diego, that was not a mistake. He was in San Diego. And that's, I mean, to me, they're all, I don't know. We're honestly in the range where they're all kind of the same. So given the price tag, I mean, give me Henry. I'm all about Henry where he is.
Yeah.
No interest in Gesicki where you have to draft him.
None. Or Knox, honestly, because Knox, he needs the touchdowns, and obviously, a Josh Allen offense can have touchdowns, but that's a big ask. Even though he could probably mimic the yards and the receptions pretty easily, he can see more. But 9 touchdowns, those come down to 6. That pretty much negates that boost.
I mean, that's 3 less games where he has any real value.
There you go.
I mean, 3 less weeks. There you go. I mean, there's probably 30-40% of his truly useful weeks gone if that happens. So I want no part of that. Now to the meat of the episode. Kickers. How do you got these things ranked? No.
Oh God.
We will leave that to Lindellians and others. We will not get into kickers.
Yeah, no. Kickers are not my strong. I'm good at streaming. I'm good at streaming kickers and defenses, but if you want like preseason takes, I cannot give you anything.
Draft kickers that kick for good offenses. It's honestly really simple. It's
Greg Joseph, sleeper this year, Minnesota Vikings kicker.
I always like to pound the table for Carlson the last couple of years because, sneaky opportunity there with the Raiders. I think it's going to be an even better offense. So, hey, if you need to have the kicker, somebody who's probably not going to get drafted at the top, Daniel Carlson's your guy.
There you go. Daniel Carlson podcast. Shout out to him.
Hey, man, kickers need love too.
Do they, though?
All right. I have a more positive opinion of kickers than most fantasy people. Mostly because you watch when somebody kicker misses a kick in the playoffs, and you see I think Goose Island did it in Chicago after the double doink, and these assholes come out and try to kick a field goal with nobody blocking them, no conditions, no whatsoever, and they just slip and fall flat on their face just trying to kick a stationary ball with no resistance. I mean, it's they're not
It's
real
hard
athletes.
to do. No one's saying it's easy, but come on, get the job done. I'm very much so of the
But we have a
opinion
good
that
kicker, dude.
yeah, you don't need kickers in fantasy. I'm still kind of upset that Scott Fishbowl, we need to roster it in the sleeper leagues. I'm in one of those because there's the, I believe, MFL leagues which don't require it, but you could flex the kicker. For the
Correct.
sleeper leagues like mine, you have to have the kicker,
Yes.
and that's very like I think Greg Joseph, as I mentioned, is my kicker. I don't care if people know that, but it's just very like I feel like there's a weird competitive disadvantage to having to have the kicker, but I guess some smarter people than I would say, oh, the numbers actually add up that the kickers are good. I don't want to put.
Been in a long-running argument with my best fantasy friend, and we still have kickers in one of our leagues. They haven't been removed yet. It's, I think, the only league I play in that still has them involved in any way. And yearly basis sends me something. He usually goes through the data. He reruns all the scores from the entire season, taking out the kickers to see if anything was affected whatsoever. And I think it's only been one match in the entire league each for 2 seasons running, and I think it was only 2 the season before. So, I mean, they're not the most significant, but
DST. I like defenses, defense, special teams, whatever.
I like that.
I think there's some strategy involved with streaming, starting, whatever.
Absolutely.
Them like maybe being like, oh, they're in a tough matchup, but I'm gonna start them anyway because the defense has been very good. They're in a shootout matchup possibly where other quarterback's gonna make mistakes. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I like that there is strategy involved to holding, dropping, how many you have. With kickers, it's just completely arbitrary. You could have a great kicker and a great offense in a great game, and he scores 5 points because they just scored 5 touchdowns.
How the offense is fair on the opponent's side of the field plays a huge role, and there's so much randomness and variability to that. I mean, I understand the disappeal.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move over to the NFC. Make sure we use the rest of your time wisely. We'll start with quarterbacks here as well. Haves and have-nots. Dallas and Philly, we know they are the haves. They have legitimate quarterbacks here. Who is your preference? Again, we're still always factoring in ADP here. Hurts or Dak? And let's say single QB. We're not really discussing Superflex much.
I prefer Hurts. He has better weapons. I think that's undeniable at this point.
Yes.
Not to say James Washington is the be-all, end-all of changing things, but it's very obvious that the Eagles have some of the best weapons in the NFL, let alone the NFC East. Hurts, I'm not a big believer in. I used to consider him a bad quarterback. I consider him a fine quarterback now, good enough, which good enough is all you need when you have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and a plus offensive line. So I'm very much so of the belief that he can repeat his fantasy performance from last year. He'll probably run less, but he'll pass more, and fantasy points are going to come by throwing more touchdowns. His touchdown rate will go up. His yards per attempt will go up. I mean, he doesn't take many sacks because he runs a lot. He's still going to run. He's still probably like the lead RB in terms of like touchdowns. Maybe those go down slightly, but again, everything's going to even out and maybe even get higher from last year. Whereas with Dak, losing Gallup for those first few games, not having Amari Cooper, who gets a lot of flack, but he's still one of the better wide receivers in the NFL.
People are not giving that enough respect, the loss of Cooper, I swear.
Cooper is legitimately very good. I'm not to say he opened up the entire field, but he did a lot to space the field. So that's a lot on CeeDee Lamb's plate, who I believe CeeDee Lamb is a wide receiver 1, but you can only do so much as the only guy on the field when Jalen Tolbert is the wide receiver 2. That is a preventative measure for him, for the quarterback, for the running game, for the offense. They lost multiple pieces on the offensive line. They lost Lyle Collins to the Bengals. They lost Connor Williams to the Miami Dolphins. They drafted a first-round offensive lineman in Tyler Smith, who's, I believe, a natural left tackle, but now playing left guard. and you don't know how that transition is going to go. They've had some success doing it, but even Connor Williams struggled a little bit in his first year. So banking on a rookie at an important position, they're in an odd spot. I think the Cowboys' offense regresses to like an average offense. They're going to look. I mean, Dak's going to look better because he's going to rush a lot more and a lot more effectively now 2 years removed from his leg fracture. But that's not going to make the entire offense go. So, yeah, I'm very much so not interested in Dak or if he falls, I'm interested. But I want Hurts if he's there.
Agreed. I think Hurts has QB1 overall upside. I don't think that exists with Dak this season. So, yeah, give me Hurts all day. And I think he is honestly, with health, a lock to be top 5. I mean, no doubt for me.
Yeah, I think he's up like 6th maybe, but whatever. It's nitpicking.
Yeah. You have nothing but utmost confidence taking him in this range and expecting that type of production is the point.
Yeah, absolutely. I have him as one of the highest scoring quarterbacks. That's like, I mean, it's not hard to say when he was QB 5 or 6 last year. He was QB 6 in points per game. So, and I think similar production to that. Maybe I have him outscoring Mahomes, honestly. So I have him as a very good quarterback. But then again, I still have other quarterbacks ahead. So it's a good year for Eagles fans because you can't go wrong with those weapons. It would take an injury. I mean, one injury wouldn't be a backbreaker, but it would definitely limit the ceiling. But no injuries, again, like you said, QB1 potential, absolutely there.
So for the have-nots there in New York and Washington, do you have any hope whatsoever for either Wentz or Jones? Any optimism for useful seasons? Or that either plays well enough, say, to keep their job next season. So, I mean, you would assume that would assume a fantasy relevant season if they can do that.
I think Jones will outscore Wentz in fantasy, assuming Jones stays healthy, assuming Wentz stays healthy. So, like, they're both injury risks. But Carson Wentz has the better chance of keeping his job for next year because Carson Wentz isn't an awful quarterback. He's not a very good quarterback anymore. He was once upon a time, but he's gotten a lot of, he's gotten a bad rep, honestly. He had a terrible season in 2020. He lost them that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars to miss the playoffs last year. But when it comes down to it, the overall package is still an average to maybe above average quarterback, which for the Washington Commanders, yeah, I'm gonna definitely say that he can keep that job over a Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke. When it comes to Daniel Jones, the team probably moves on in the offseason. They don't want to pay a salary. They don't want to invest in a quarterback that wasn't picked by their staff. And, yeah, I think they move on.
I agree with you. Honestly, I think they'll both end up moving on. I think Wentz has just regressed enough over the last couple of years, whether it's injury, whether it's lack of good faith from Philly, as Hurts was waiting in the wings there, whatever happened, there in Indianapolis, what's going to happen here? He's, God, who do I want to say I heard say this? I think it was Adam Chine on Sirius XM. He's the most inconsistent quarterback, not just from week to week, but from game to game, snap to snap. I swear that there is. I mean, when Carson's on, yeah, I'll say I defended the guy way longer than I feel that I should have. I even kept the optimism going into last year. I was in some dynasty startups last offseason that I am now regretting because I thought Wentz late was a hell of a bargain. Proved to be wrong. I've soured a ton on Carson Wentz. So,
I mean, okay, look, he can rush the ball. There's rushing. Yeah. He can do that. That's one talent. If you remove 2020 from his career, which let's call that an outlier season, which if you look at his career, it is. You include the rookie season, which he struggled. When it comes down to interception rate, when it comes down to sack rate, he's actually like above average in both of those. So he doesn't make those mistakes. He's inaccurate by all means. But he throws the ball deep. He's not just some check down Charlie at all times.
That's true.
He hasn't had the best passing weapons throughout his past few years, at least. Obviously, he had Jonathan Taylor last year and Michael Pittman, but overall in his career, the passing weapons haven't exactly been ideal. I think they tried to force some guys who weren't like Zach Ertz was his wide receiver 1, and then Dallas Goedert was his wide receiver 2 with Alshon Jeffrey having an injury-riddled season a couple of seasons ago. And then 2020, it was like Rager, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside they tried to force on him. he's had weird seasons with some bad luck teams. Like Greg Ward was his wide receiver 1 that year. That's not on him.
No, you're totally right about that. I wrote an article last year to try and defend him and went over every previous season. And yeah, I mean, was the apologist for Carson Wentz, for lack of a better word. I think it was not even always necessarily the physical nature of his play, but just watching him. I mean, it didn't seem that his leadership really grabbed the Colts at any point. I mean, the meltdown against the Jaguars is damn near unforgivable. I mean, he wins that game in there in the playoffs. He melts down against the last year's Jacksonville Jaguars. That is... Would he throw 4 picks in that game, if I recall correctly? I mean,
that's why he's gone. That's why he's gone.
That's
why he's gone. But when it comes down to it, on like the surface, when you just look at his stats, at least look beyond all of the the narratives about how he's a bad leader and whatnot. Yeah, maybe, but when it comes down to the numbers, he's an average quarterback, to above average even at times. So that's something the Commanders are going to want to keep around, and they probably win enough games in that division to not have a top pick, whereas the Giants...
That's a good point.
The Giants have worse weapons, maybe a better offensive line, but Daniel Jones is a worse quarterback than Wentz. I think that's fair to say. He could have a good year for Daniel Jones, but they'd still move on from that. You know how San Francisco moves on from Jimmy G, even though Jimmy G is a fine quarterback.
That's fair. And that is a good point. Washington's likely to win enough games. They're not going to get one of the truly top prospects coming out in this class, so they may not have a better option other than to stick with Wentz. We'll go a couple quick comments before we move on. Yeah, you're late, Anthony. Good for you. I do want to clarify this. He says Zach Moss was beat out by Matt Breida last year, not even dressing late in the year. Please explain where you see the Moss upside. We did not claim to see any Moss upside. All we said is that he has no upside. But he's good, as Kev was explaining, at being a strong third down back.
He's good at protecting the quarterback.
And good at protecting the quarterback, that he's going to stick in that role in all likelihood. So it's not really about upside, it's that he caps what upside Cook might have had. Yeah.
He's basically a fullback. I'm not saying he has like fantasy upside. Like I'll take him in a 34-round full PPR draft as my like 9th running back, maybe. Just be like, I'll take a flyer on a guy who was a top 120 pick last year. But when it comes down to why he's going to be on the field,
he's still on the board at that point.
There you go. Whatever. My whole thing is with Moss, he's going to play snaps if he's healthy. Right. And the reason he wasn't playing last year is because he had that high ankle sprain. He was a lot less explosive, and he's not that explosive in general. That's why I never liked him. I thought he was very, he ran with like a parachute behind his back. But overall, he can play on the NFL field if he's fully healthy. He's dealt with health issues. He's dealt with ankle surgeries. But he looks fine right now in preseason. The reports are coming out that he's going to be part of the rotation. So there's no reason to believe that he's not going to play unless he gets hurt. And I do think he can out-snap James Cook while James Cook out-touches him. And that's just bad for both of them in general.
Right. And I think that's exactly what will happen. All right, so NFC East running backs. We'll start with the most fun, the prodigy, the man, Saquon Barkley. Now, this I already know you're extremely high on Mr. Barkley, as I am. We're of a mind here. So just because we have to discuss, how high on Saquon Barkley are you?
I have him as a top 6 running back this year.
My man.
Top 9 pick, top 10 pick maybe. He's available at the end of the first round, early second. I'm taking him there all day. I would take him at the back end of the first round ahead of Najee Harris, ahead of
yes.
I'm trying to think of those late. I mean, I feel like him and Diggs. Of course, Aaron Jones, absolutely.
If any of those guys go in there.
I'm just trying to think of picks that might be off the board early. It's very tough to think of players that I wouldn't really take him. Like I'd take him over Derrick Henry. Yeah. I'd take him over DeAndre Swift. It's just the only running backs I have ahead of him: Taylor, CMC, Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. So that's 5. He's RB6. Those are the 5 I'd take ahead of him.
Yeah, I also have him as 6th. Only one difference there in the top 5. So that's full on back. He's back. We're ready.
Okay, look, he's not back as in he hasn't really played yet. He's still just practicing. But the thought process is, in 2020 he tore his ACL 2 games in. undeniable. That happened. 2021, he's coming back from this ACL surgery. He's 12 months removed. He's still recovering. He's not 12 months removed. I'm sorry. He's about 9 or 10 months removed to start the season. They were saying there were reports that he's not fully ready. They still played him. They still eked him in. And then he ends up having the high ankle sprain, and then he ends up missing time in season, and he looks awful.
That was a complete freak injury, by the way. I mean, it was post-play. He was jogging back to the huddle, and some cowboy rolled net.
Yeah, and that was in week 5. He was looking better
as
the
he
week
was starting
before.
to look really good there.
Yeah, the 2 weeks prior, he had 117 yards on 13 targets, 103 yards on 29 rushes, 2 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns between those 2 weeks. Not the most efficient, but he was seeing the targets. He was looking better, and you were thinking as the season rolled along, he's going to get stronger. He's going to get better. That didn't happen because he had the high ankle sprain, and then high ankle sprains are roughly mid-season season enders. You look at Jerry Jeudy last year, he suffered it in week 1, missed about 8 weeks or so. He just was not the same wide receiver he was. He looked great that first week, and obviously you can only hold down to that for so long, but other than, I mean, you could say I'm wish casting by thinking I'm going to prorate that first week, but high ankle sprains are death sentences. I believe Alvin Kamara had one a few years ago. Michael Thomas has had one. Everybody suffers a high ankle sprain. It's not like something too rare, but when it comes down to Saquon, he was coming back, suffered it, and his season just went to shit. Now, fully healthy, that isn't lingering. He's 2 years removed from his ACL tear. I expect all systems go. He looks strong as ever. He is still the best running back prospect of the last decade. We saw the production in year 1 and year 2. He had 4.8 yards per carry, 6 yards per target those years. Incredible running back, performing with Daniel Jones and Eli Manning, the shell of Eli Manning. So I think in this offense with Dabble coming in, not many receivers, he could arguably lead the team in receiving. He should have 280 rushes on the year. I haven't projected as RB1 overall, but I'm not going to take him as RB1 overall.
I love it. Projected as RB1 though. All right, you do have the big balls. Hell yeah, Kev. I think I have him 5th, but yeah, ranked as 6th. Either way, we both expect the old Saquon to return and thrive in the Daboll offense.
Yeah, you can't ignore the injuries. That's why I have him dropped. And there's a lot of good running backs. I think him and Dalvin Cook is where I get a little iffy because Dalvin suffered plenty of injuries. He has his shoulder, which is still an issue, but it's undeniable that Dalvin's in a better offense. So when it comes down to that outcome, it's easier to trust the RB in the better offense, even though he'll see fewer receptions and he might be more injury prone. It's just with Saquon, he just hasn't done it in 3 years. So that's why part of it that I've dropped.
That exactly where my head's at as well. All right, so old reliable, if we can call him that. Now Zeke's going, or at least as I wrote the show sheet, RB16 off the board. He was running back 7 overall last year, but RB15 in points per game. I think, well, actually, you've already kind of explained you expect the Dallas offense to take a step back. I think I'm probably a little more optimistic. It's not going to be a high-flying offense as it has been, but I still expect it to be an above-average offense. So when it comes to Zeke being drafted in about the points per game range he produced last year, you look at that as still any sort of value, given the semi-durability that allowed him to put up running back 7 overall numbers, or is he a time bomb?
I don't know what to make of him, honestly. I think he's very capable of doing what he's done the last 2 years. And again, I don't think the offense is... I think the offense gets worse. He tore his PCL, reportedly, but he didn't have surgery, and now it's healed. I don't know what's going on there. There's a chance it was just a bad strain, and it's still holding on by a thread. So...
That's a scary thought.
I mean, a strain is a tear, but it's not a full rupture. So I'm not I know it says proto-surgeon here, and I'm not an actual doctor, but from what I've read about Tommy John for pitchers, from just ACL tears, there's different types. There's full tears, and then there's strains, which are the torn ligament, and that's what I believe that Zeke did have, the torn PCL. But those aren't 100% recovered, even though he might feel 100%. Week 7, week 8, when he's feeling soreness, if he makes the wrong step, he can absolutely rupture it. Richard Sherman, he was feeling Achilles soreness. He might have had a strain, and then he tore his Achilles on a random play a few years ago. These things are precursors to worse injuries. And not to, again, I'm not medically licensed by all means. I'm just speaking from the research I've done from reading, not actual surgery or anything, because, again, not a surgeon. But I'd be worried about Zeke if I was drafting him. On the surface, though, I wouldn't expect him to get much better, but I think he could definitely put up another RB2 season. And if you're drafting him at ADP, you're probably going to get a return on investment like a 0. You're just going to get whatever you got. Tony Pollard, another guy, like I know, just to go off a tangent on his backup, he had plantar fasciitis, and that's, a foot injury that's often reoccurring. He had that, and he missed time. He came back for the playoffs, I believe, or the end of the season, and, he looked okay, but...
Antonio Gates missed a lot of games thanks to that.
Antonio Gates missed a lot of games. Those things don't really go away. I don't think he had, like, a serious, severe strain or injury or fracture or anything on his foot, but when these lingering issues do pop up early in their career, I get very worried. Remember Todd Gurley's arthritis that people just did not care about. Not that this is arthritis, it's different, but issues that can linger.
But like you said, if it's showing up early and often,
I believe it was a one-time thing. This is like the only time, but it's showing up at the end of the year, so we don't know if it's going to show up again.
With Pollard, but with Zeke though, we've seen a bit of that over time. Even though he's been relatively durable or pretty durable in terms of actually still being on the field, I think we've realized he's played many of those games, well under 100%.
Yeah.
So,
and I think he's a safe bet to play. Like, I don't think he's going to miss time. I just think he's not going to play as well as people expect him to. And Pollard, even though I just talked about him, worried about him as well, he's going to eat into those snaps, and that upside's limited. And I think Dak is going to steal more goal line touches with him running more this year. So I just don't see the upside with Zeke, honestly. I don't think he's going to be more explosive than he was at 27 now, or at 26 now that he's 27, because that's not really how these things work, especially when your offense gets worse.
All very good points. I'm, like you said, probably expect him to do this. Your return on investment there will be about 0. You're going to get exactly what you're drafting there. There's no real upside to get, but it's
I'd take the wide
semi-safe. I think, definitely going receiver in that range. To me, the dead zone is earlier with running backs this year. I like a lot of the slightly later ones. RB 12 to 18, I'll pass, but everything going like 18 or later, I start to get a little interested again.
I pick and choose. I don't think there's a dead zone this year, but I do think there are like dead RBs that you shouldn't be drafting. There's plenty of those, and I think Zeke's one of them.
Fair. For his cost, yes. If he falls a little bit, though, I do like him as a little bit of a value.
Yeah, if you need an RB, if you went wide receiver heavy or tight end, and
I do that a lot. So
yeah, see, I don't. I usually get my RBs, so I don't have to worry about taking guys like Zeke. That's just not my go-to. I have drafted wide receiver heavy, and I hate my teams like 9 times out of 10.
That was me up until the last 2 years. Honestly, as I started diving into more and more of this my own analysis, and just playing a lot more with draft strategy, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So now the also-rans here in this division, at least as I'm calling them, Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson. I'm pretty out on both of these guys. I don't really... While the Eagles' offense is going to improve, obviously you mentioned the stable of weapons that Hurts is going to have, available to him. I don't see how that's going to allow additional usage for Miles Sanders. I just don't see Sirianni being particularly committed to getting him significant volume. And as it pertains to Gibson, pretty in line. I hate saying this, I'm kind of in line with a lot of consensus thought with Gibson, but while a very talented guy, the signs are there that they re-signed J.D. McKissick back after he had already agreed in principle there with the Bills, so they made the extra effort to make sure he was back. They drafted Brian Robinson, who I don't really think is particularly good, but nonetheless, they spent a third-round draft capital on a running back. And what was it? I don't know exactly when it was, but Gibson had been quoted as saying he would love to be part of a committee, or if asked about being part of a committee, he would love that. So that's not necessarily cause for optimism in my book. I don't know what you think about either of these guys, but I'm not particularly interested in either.
I'm not interested in Miles Sanders, even though I do think he can have a bounce back year in the sense of touchdowns. Like, he's not going to score 0 touchdowns again this year. He's going to start the season probably as the guy, but my guess is Kenneth Gainwell does end up taking over, playing a larger amount of those snaps, with Miles Sanders being the first two down back, the first and second down back, and Gainwell being the third down, while mixing in as a, within this committee, mixing in on those first two downs as well. So I draft Gainwell 50 picks after Sanders all day. And that's just, Gainwell, I don't expect the biggest season, but I do think if Sanders does get hurt again, he missed 5 games last year, 4 games the year prior. So he's missed a lot of time the past 2 seasons. He's not the most reliable back. He's not a good pass catcher. Last 2 years, he's been horrible. Maybe 2 years ago was because of Wentz and the offense as a whole, but he just was not, he could not catch a pass to save his life. I remember that season vividly because I had a lot of, I think, Carson Wentz or something. So I had a lot of someone, which was a bad take to have. But going back to it, Sanders not interested, even though I do think he can improve. He's another guy. You can get the return on investment. You could have another 0 with Zeke. I don't see the upside with Sanders. We would have seen it by now. He just is kind of what he is, which is a near 200 touchback with not enough receptions, not enough touchdowns, because the goal line back there is Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Bottom line. So Sanders, even with some regression, doesn't have the upside. And Gainwell is going to steal those touches on third down. So that's all kaput for him. Not interested in Miles Sanders. Antonio Gibson, on the other hand. J.D. McKissic is a better blocker than him. That's why they brought him back for those third downs. That's the only reason they really did that. They like protecting their quarterback. Not a question. Him liking to be in a committee. Every running back's in a committee, except for Christian McCaffrey, and he's someone who should be in a committee, considering the injuries he's dealt with the last 2 years. So I think wanting to be in a committee, like him and Josh Jacobs, people are like downgrading them for these like weird statements, but it's meaningless to me. Every running back is in a committee. If he's taking 60% of the snaps, J.D. McKissic's taking 30%, and Brian Robinson's taking 10%, that's a committee. He's still the lead back. I think Antonio Gibson's going to be the lead back of an average offense, but taking all of the goal line work, essentially. I know Wentz is going to sneak a few in, but overall, I think Antonio Gibson is the goal line back. I don't care about Brian Robinson being mentioned as the short yardage back, because that could be short yardage between the 20s when you're grinding on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, whatever. That's short yardage. Goal line is a completely different scenario where Antonio Gibson's had some success over the last 2 years. He has double-digit touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. Last year, 3 of them came via reception, but he's one of the most explosive players in the NFL at the running back position. He's been good. He's been an RB2 over the last 2 years. He hasn't really broken out, but year one, he was a rookie. So you can't really blame him for not being, the best of the best as a rookie. And then last year, he dealt with a fractured shin for almost all of the season. So he was playing hurt and still put up an RB2 season in points per game and touched the ball 300 times. So even if he doesn't touch the ball 300 times, I have him about 250 to 275 range. The touchdowns are still going to be there. I don't think that's going away because of Brian Robinson, a super senior who wouldn't have been drafted if not for COVID. The only reason he had that season was because of the COVID year, extending his career, giving him that one extra year to be that workhorse in an Alabama offense that was today rebuilding, as Nick Saban said. So I don't see Brian Robinson, even though he was a third-round pick, as a threat, because mostly the Washington Commanders are going to be a 50-50 split between the pass and the run. That's every year. Look at Carson Wentz's splits in his offense, and I believe this is a stat that carries over from quarterbacks. Pass run is a quarterback stat. So it's almost always 50-50. You're going to have 450 to 500 rushes between Gibson, Robinson, and J.D. McKissic. That's plenty for Gibson if he could get 200 to 300, not 300, but 200 to 250 of those. Robinson could have 150 rushes and still not eat into Gibson being a potential RB1 this year. Because Gibson, like I mentioned, he might not be in on third downs, but we're still hearing Curtis Samuel having hamstring issues. Jahan Dotson, rookie, I think he's talented. He's fine. Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1. Beyond that, Logan Thomas dealing with multiple ligament issues in his knee. John Bates is the tight end, too. Nobody really knows who John Bates is, I guess, if you're drafting him in the 34th round, do you? But they don't have a bevy of weapons. Gibson can realistically play out of the slot. He could be motioned out on first and second down to play a receiver role. And Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways for Gibson to eat, and as long as he stays the primary goal line back, I don't see any reason for his value to be dipping this low. He's been the RB17 over the last 2 seasons, points per game. He's going as RB24. Makes no sense. I don't care about any of the talk going on. He's fully healthy. He should be more explosive. I'd have him closer to RB12 than RB24.
Wow. Well,
sorry, was that a lot?
No. Well, it was a lot, but I mean, it was all relevant. There wasn't, fluff in there, so it works. Yeah, and I don't know that you sway me at all, really, but you do make some good points about, the lack of weapons, because for me, the lack of third down work is significant. It will be McKissick out there as long as he's healthy, so how many receiving opportunities is he really going to have on first and second down? Although, yeah, if they do have to throw him out in the slot regularly, especially, if Samuel continues to not be able to get on the field, that will open up opportunity. But I also still more about Wentz when it comes to that.
Yeah. He's in his third year. Why can't he improve is the thing. He wasn't even a full-time running back in college. And again, he dealt with the injury last year. So my thing
if they used him correctly, I also still have my just doubts about Ron Rivera giving him enough proper opportunity, for receiving as he should be. I think you're right. He is, I don't want to say one of the most explosive players in the league as you did, but I do think he is a very
at the running back. Sorry, at the running back position. I think I qualified.
Right. Yeah, he is a very explosive player, though. Yes, he's very talented. He's got wiggle. He's got speed. He's a good football player. So I think that's undeniable. I think for me, it's really all situational. In Dynasty, I'm still happy to get him on the cheap and hope that improves.
This might sound crazy. I traded Travis Etienne for Antonio Gibson. I believe in Gibson long term more than I believe in Etienne.
Well, I am number one in the Etienne club, so yeah, I don't like that at all. But
you would have taken my offer, and I feel confident in it. But the thing is, I'm a believer in Gibson. I was a denier at first, and I was a believer in Etienne. Then Etienne suffered the list for injury. So it's just funny how these things work, right, where one thing or another could flip it. Now I'm in because Gibson's price is just so damn low. He was a second rounder last year. Now he's a fifth rounder, sometimes a sixth rounder.
Well, I loved him last year. I couldn't fathom a second round price last year, so thankfully I avoided any catastrophe in that regard. But
yeah.
It is kind of a disrespectful fall. All right. Well, let's get through the last bits here. Wrap it up before someone comes looking for you.
No, we're good.
No, you good? All right, good. So wide receivers. So for my money, quarterback correlation in terms of throwing the ball. McLaurin and A.J. Brown. Obviously, you've stated how you feel about Wentz and average quarterback, above average statistically, depending on how you break it down. And then A.J. Brown, we already discussed Hurts as the fantasy god he is. But can you support A.J. Brown as a wide receiver one?
No. I think you could support him as a good wide receiver two, though. Which is no slide on A.J. Brown. It's just there are going to be players that are peppered more, or like a Deebo Samuel is going to be given more rush attempts along with the same amount of targets. So he's going to be in the same range, or if not higher. Tyreek Hill, more targets. They're going to be wide receivers. It would take injuries for A.J. Brown to take that step up. I have him as a high end two, and I'd prefer him in not PPR, sorry, half PPR formats where his efficiency and his touchdowns can make up for the lack of receptions. And I'd also prefer him in best ball where I could just take the spike weeks and not worry about those weeks where maybe Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert get more looks. And A.J. Brown, he's a big play threat on every touch, but I don't think every game is going to be a big play. But he'll have his weeks. I'm interested in at ADP because he's a very good player. And, I love drafting good players. I have nothing against that, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the quarterback, as mentioned. You're in a spot where if A.J. Brown is up there, and it's that or a young player who is unproven, like I'd take A.J. Brown over like Kyle Pitts, even though I don't have Kyle Pitts scoring too much lower, but I've seen A.J. Brown do it. He was the wide receiver one overall in like Dynasty like just a year ago before he had the double knee surgery. So we know the upside, and I'm just a big fan of his, obviously, because he's done it before and he could do it again regardless of the low pass volume offense.
He might be my favorite non-49er in the league. So yeah, he's God, the guy's incredible. And
Yeah.
just hope Hurts continues to grow a bit as a passer and yeah, consistently put him in situations, leading passes, not having to. I don't want to disparage my former guy Jimmy too much, but throwing balls Debo had to catch at times, kind of reaching behind him and make it happen. I hope Hurts can grow and help Brown thrive. What about
Yeah.
Terry though? I mean, you think him and Wentz are a good match?
I think they're fine together. They're fine. I'm not looking at Terry this year in drafts. I'm usually not looking at Terry because while it is a quarterback upgrade, I don't think it's enough, and I don't think the pass volume is going to be there overall in the offense. It has nothing to do with Jahan Dawson. I just don't see the volume being there. The Curtis Samuel injury, yes, it could benefit Terry as well, and I'm of the belief that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, one of the better wide receivers in the league. Excuse me, but overall, Wentz not the most accurate. Deep ball accuracy is there, but they are going to be rushing a lot, like the Eagles. But Terry is not AJ Brown. He's not the same caliber wide receiver. While he's very good, so I'm at his price, his 4th-round cost, I'd take like DJ Moore over him.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I
think that deep ball connection is really honestly what he's going to have to rely on for his most useful weeks in 2022. I think that's going to be really the key to his scoring is how often him and Wentz can connect on those.
He's going ahead of Allen Robinson, Courtland Sutton, and Marquise Brown. I'd take all 3 of those guys, and then him and Jerry Jeudy. I think I'd take him over Jerry Jeudy, but that's like close as well. So, and that's like a wide receiver 2 on the team. So, I like Terry. No, nothing against him. It's just he's had bad fantasy situations. He's not in a high volume pass offense, as mentioned. He's just in a very poor situation with Wentz. While Wentz did support Michael Pittman's a different type of wide receiver. He's that big-bodied, just catch radius. While Terry does have a very good catch radius to his credit, I just don't think he could play in the same sectors of the field like Michael Pittman did, and he's going to have to rely on those deep balls, which may be good from Wentz this year, but I'm not going to bank on it.
Well, and even if they are good, I mean, how frequent will they be? Yeah. In order to support that, that's another concern I have.
Yeah, and then in best ball, the spike week's going to be there. I think Terry this year is just not the guy I want, unless say Curtis Samuel's out for the year. Somehow again, very possible. Then yeah, Terry definitely benefits. He could see like a 27.5% target share, which basically puts him with the top wide receivers in the league.
But how valuable is that in Washington?
It doesn't matter if you're getting that many targets. That's just pure volume, unadulterated volume. That'll float his value above around the Tyreek Hills. But that's what it would take, because at this current moment, even with these 24-25% projected target share, it's not cutting it with Wentz.
Fair. All right. We touched on it a little bit earlier. Amari Cooper's departure. Amari Cooper's departure from Dallas obviously is going to have some sort of effect on CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas offense as a whole. But can CeeDee now? You've established you think he's going to still be a wide receiver 1, as do I. But I mean, how can he really thrive? I mean, we expect him to do well, but does he have that true superstar ceiling without a running mate like Cooper?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his target share is going to go up substantially. He's only had about 20% over the last 2 years, or that's been his career high up to this point, and he has the talent, in my opinion. He runs routes extremely well. He's great at yards after the catch. He's not the fastest, but he gets open downfield. The only thing is how bracketed he gets, and that has to do just completely by the weapons around him. If they're not performing, he's going to be basically locked down on a regular basis. We saw this with Calvin Ridley last year. At the start of the season, before his I believe it was his leave of absence last season, he wasn't even injured. Now he's suspended. That's a completely different situation. Calvin Ridley was getting locked up play by play, even though we know Calvin Ridley is a very good wide receiver. I think CeeDee Lamb could be in that same boat. So that's the risk you're running. People would point to his target share in the past. I don't care about that. I think he's going to get peppered, but this offense is not good. They don't have many explosive players. They're going to be running Zeke out there way more than they should, and Dak is going to be better, but he's not going to be good enough to support this offense until Michael Gallup comes back, and then even then, we don't know how Michael Gallup's going to look. And I like Michael Gallup. No, nothing against him. It's just he's coming off his ACL very late in the season. I believe it was like week 15 or
15,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's very late. There's no guarantee he's going to be anywhere close to where he has been. So, yeah, I'm interested in CeeDee Lamb. He falls in the second round. I'm not reaching for him. I would be taking the running backs in that range. And, if he is there in the mid to late second round, I'd absolutely take him because he's good enough to get it done. But I don't want to bank on him, if that makes sense. I don't want to have to reach for this guy.
Makes perfect sense. I'm, again, another player we're actually pretty similar on. I do think the extra attention is something he's going to struggle with at times, and so you mentioned obviously the performance of his teammates is going to dictate the type of coverage that he's going to receive, and go to a guy like Dalton Schultz. Last year had a very good season. Part of the reason is the guy was wide damn open on nearly every play he made. Why? Because Cooper and Lamb were out there balling. When Schultz is facing legitimate coverage now this season, especially with Washington and Gallup on the bend, I mean, Jalen Tolbert will see what he can do as a young pup early on. My guess is not much, like most receivers in NFL history. So, when CD's really facing, being game planned for legitimately as the wide receiver one on a week-to-week basis, I think there are going to be a little bit of growing pains. Now, he's a good enough player that it will be overcome. Dak is a good enough quarterback that it will be overcome to a degree, but I don't see him throwing out consistent, top 8 weeks over and over. So I won't reach for him, but I guess I'd be a little excited if he falls only because that upside is there based on talent alone and having the quarterback. But
absolutely, I mean,
but outside
they have
of those
a great connection.
Things, it's everything else is concerning.
Yeah, the Cowboys' offense could be not tragic, but very disappointing this year.
I think I have enough you are right, but I have more faith that it won't be, I think, really just because of my belief largely in Dak, just as a very good NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he could extend plays and he could get guys open with his legs. So, that's where I'm still open to drafting CD. I don't think it's going to be a Calvin Ridley situation from last year, but that's just the overarching fear. That's like worst case scenario. I don't think that happens. And, I haven't projected for more than like Tyreek Hill. I have about more than, Deebo Samuel. So I have him over those guys, over Mike Evans, just not close to like Stephon Diggs or those other like round one wide receivers where they're just like a tier break.
I'm actually same. Looking at yeah. All right. So moving to the New York Giants here. I think it's a bit of a giant disaster at the wide receiver position. Yeah, great pun. Do you think any of these guys will have fantasy legitimacy? Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay,
no. I don't see it. I think, they could get to 10, 11, 12 points per game. I think they could be like a flex play, which is fantasy legitimacy, I guess. But they're not guys you want to draft because they're guys who are going to be performing similar to players you get off the waiver wire. So I'm not interested in any San Francisco Giant. New York Giant. Freudian slip, excuse me. Except for Saquon and Daniel Jones at ADP. And then, maybe Wan'Dale Robinson or Kadarius Toney break out. Kenny Golladay, I think he could be fine. He probably leads the team, even though he's having trouble separating in practice.
Right.
I don't think there's going to be enough to go around. It's probably going to be a very run-heavy team and Saquon-heavy team in general. Not just run-heavy, just running through their superstar running back. And, people say, Dabble hasn't played through the running back. He hasn't had a Saquon.
He hasn't had
Yeah, he said Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I'm sorry. This offense is going to play through the running back, and they're going to limit the amount of throws that Daniel Jones has to make. Yeah. Wan'Dale is going to play more than people expect because of the Sterling Shepard injury. I don't know what to expect out of Darius Slayton, who I once liked. He might get cut, but it's just a mishmash of wide receivers that are fine.
And to your point there about Dabo, he hasn't run offenses through his running backs before, like you said, because he has Singletary and Moss. But what we have seen him do is heavily run his offense through his best freaking players.
Yes.
A lot of Allen and Diggs.
Yeah.
All Allen and Diggs. I mean, not all, but damn near.
Saquon's the best player on this offense. He's going to get the ball. He's going to have the ball in his hands. Yep.
Constantly. All right, now back to the unfortunate position that has to be discussed in tight end. I actually already kind of gave my little spiel there on Schultz. So I think his success last year was largely driven to just being open due to the great play of the trio of wide receivers around him. Because I forgot to include Gallup in that comment earlier. I do think Gallup is very good. And so, yeah, when you have Cooper, Lamb, and Gallup running around, who cares about Dalton Schultz? Well, this year, they're going to have to care. Is he going to, was last year a sign of things to come, or am I right?
You're right. It's a fluke season. And not a fluke season that, like, he can't repeat it. He could repeat it if there was a Amari Cooper around. Right. The downward pressure of the offense is going to consolidate Schultz. The way I was just talking about CD, it's almost guaranteed for Schultz, given that there's only going to be one talented wide receiver on the field at all times. One very talented, not Jalen Tolbert could be fine. I don't know much about him. I heard he's having trouble running routes in practice and get yelled at a lot. But when it comes down to it with Schultz, he's going to be running routes. He might lead the league in routes run among tight ends. He's going to be inefficient because he's not very good at creating yards after the catch. He's not very fast. He's not athletic. He's not going to get it downfield very quick. He's going to get peppered like a dump off target, and he's going to score like one. I think he's similar to Hawkinson last year. So I have him scoring about the same as TJ Hawkinson and those kind of lower end T10-ish types where you're not really getting elite performances out of. Like, if your decision, why would you take Dalton Schultz over Dallas Goedert, who's going to be in a very good offense, who's going to double his efficiency, who's going to score more touchdowns? That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm taking Dallas Goedert 30 picks after Schultz in ADP, like, all day, because Schultz you're banking on. What's up?
That's an insane chasm right there between.
Yeah, it is. It's ridiculous. I mean, they should be back to back and being like, okay, one's going to see the volume, one's going to have the efficiency, but you have to pick them 30 picks apart when one's significantly more talented and was T6 in points per game just last year after Ertz left. Sorry to qualify that. Yeah, no, Goddard's already proven it. The field's going to be way more opened up with Brown and Smith on both sides. It's going to be hilarious when he outscores Schultz and people paid 30 picks more for Schultz.
So I think you accidentally answered the next question I was going to ask, and I was going to lead right in.
Sorry, I'm trying to get out of here. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
It's a good thing. No. So leading right into Dallas Goedert, though, I was going to ask, can he repeat last year's performance? I was going to say tight end 8 points per game, factoring the whole season, not just post Ertz. So thank you for bringing that up. So improved performance after Ertz was traded. I was going to ask you if he can repeat with A.J. Brown in town now, or is it going to have the Schultz effect of last year where they've got two very good wide receivers running around opening things up for Goddard?
I mean, Goddard's good enough to do it without anybody opening up. He's one of the most talented tight ends in the league right now. Aside from that, yes, A.J. Brown and Smith being around, they're going to benefit him, and my guess is the target share is roughly similar to Devonta Smith because, Dallas Goedert is just that good. He's going to command his targets. He was literally second in almost every tight end efficiency metric behind, like, Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce or George Kittle, like someone like that. And, like, each one, he's up there with them. He was 20th in routes run, second in efficiency. I mean, like, yards per route run, yards per target, yards after catch, whatever you want to look at. It doesn't matter. Goddard was right up there. Routes run, I think he was 20th. Schultz was up there in the top 6 or 7. He has no room to grow. And he has room to go down in efficiency, whereas Goddard can go down in efficiency, not much, but running more routes is going to naturally see his progression go up. And that's going to happen with Ertz out of town and their T2 being Jack Stoll, who's maybe a fine blocking tight end. He's not a fantasy relevant guy. That's not why we're not discussing that guy. I'm very in on Goddard this year. I think he is the tight end to target in the middle of drafts.
Just on principle, I hate drafting tight ends in the middle of drafts, but if there was one to take, I would agree that it is Goddard.
Yeah. I mean, strategically, you're better off waiting typically, but I think there is an exception. Like I said, I think him and Smith will have a similar 20-ish% target share, while A.J. Brown's closer to 23, 24, 25 in that range.
I think you're not far off there at all. So QB correlation here 2.0, back to the lesser quarterbacks in the division. They're tight ends. So Bellinger or Akins there in New York, or Logan Thomas, assuming he can even play. Do any of these guys matter enough for us to even say any more sentences after this?
If you want the tight end in Washington, take John Bates. He's probably going to start off the season. I mentioned him before. Bellinger, I barely know anything about. Jordan Aiken's not going to play as much. He might block a little bit. These guys don't matter. Don't even consider them.
Thank you. So that'll wrap up the divisions there. I think we got some pretty good discussion in there.
Yeah,
I'd
say we covered just about everything for those two divisions.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the defense, special teams, the kickers? Go all day.
Oh, yeah. Everything but IDP, only because
I
do a good enough job of sounding dumb on my own. I mean, while I have an okay knowledge of defensive players in real life, analyzing them from a fantasy scoring perspective, hell no.
You've done a fantastic job. Don't worry about that.
So with that, do our quick little plugs, get you out of here, get you back to your Fox Sports family. So for us, I actually do have one announcement to make. It was announcement. God, I can't even talk tonight. It was announced earlier today on social media on our Discord that we do have a new Discord server for us at Rogue Fantasy. So previously, myself and one of the partners, we've been part of the server most of the year, but it has now been taken over by Rogue. So we have new channels, new analysts, betting, fantasy, DFS, best ball, what have you. Please come join us. Kev, you're welcome to join anytime. I don't know if you're much of a Discord guy, but if you do like to mess around with it all, then maybe it's not your cup of tea. But for those that it is, please come join us. Betting picks damn near every day. That will only increase in frequency as more sports kick off and we get out of just baseball. Actually, while we are live, I'm going to check in on my one current sweat, which is Shohei Ohtani strikeouts. I need him
7.
Son of a bitch.
Was it 7.5?
No, it's 8.5.
Oh, yeah. No, he did not get that.
Is he already out, too?
Oh, yeah. He's been out.
Did he get, worked at some point?
Oh,
my God. A's. Dude, he only had, 46 pitches through 4 innings. Son of a bitch. He only went 5 more outs?
Yeah. He didn't have a great day.
Oh, my God. Well, he sold the bag. All right, so my night is ruined. Thank you for joining. If you want to get more losing bets like Ohtani strikeouts, come check out the Discord. It is fantastic. No, but seriously, please come join us throughout the season. Social media, we'll be promoting picks, fantasy, DFS. But yeah, everything is brand new, refreshed. Please come check it out. Otherwise, I'm going to turn the floor over to my boy here, Kev. Please, the floor is yours. And
did he just give me the full floor? Well, regardless, thank you, Tycoon, for giving me the floor completely. Make sure to go follow me at RotoSurgeon on Twitter. That's just where most of my work goes nowadays. My projections are up live. They are available in my pinned tweet, and then the Operating Room podcast, where you can hear me regularly every week. Just had Ray GQ on the pod, and that was a fantastic show talking about upside running backs. But other than that, Tycoon, if you want to get back in here anytime soon, I don't have much else to plug.
No, that's all. I just wanted to, let you make your statement solo for a moment. That's all.
That was very personal.
Episode with Ray, I have not listened to yet. I do have a lot of respect for him as well, especially as I look to him a lot when it comes to rookie analysis, college analysis, Devi material.
Yeah, we talked about the young guys.
Yeah,
it was all upside young guys.
So I'll be very curious to listen to that one. Well, thank you again, Kev, seriously, for joining us. This was a hell of an episode. Most fun I've had doing this in months. Obviously, it's much better than any solo show. It was a pleasure to get the chance to meet you in person at the Scott Fishbowl 12 draft a few weeks back at Trophy Smack. God, that was a hell of a time. Great damn day. And look forward to hopefully, we definitely need more. So hopefully sometime soon. And good luck to you. Thank goodness you're not in my division.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I got Fabiano, Bob Harris, Lindsey Rhodes. I got some tough ones in my league.
Yeah, we got Ratcliffe, I think, is our biggest name. Good draft on his head, too. So but we had some sharp drafters. I was regularly pissed off. What can I say?
Yeah, I'm still mad about passing on Hollywood Brown for Goddard. So, I mean, even though I talked all this good stuff, I made a mistake. And because I didn't realize Zach Ertz was going to get back to me on the turn. It was just, I made a mess of myself.
That tight end premium going to save you. And maybe Hollywood does get suspended for speeding. And if so, then you made the right decision.
Then I made the wrong decision in the other 50% of my league. So, you know what? It's a win-lose.
See, yeah, 50-50 either way. You're fine.
yeah, win lose, baby.
All right, man. Well, thank you again, seriously, for joining. And thank you as well, any viewers out there. Appreciate your time. And this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.
Take care.